Hello and welcome to what would have been the Year 12 Parents Information Evening. It may well not be evening when you're watching the presentation and listening to it, but obviously it's one of the things that we've had to adjust in these times. Sadly, we aren't able to welcome all parents back into school. I'll start by introducing the sixth form team who will be supporting your son, daughters over the next 2 years. I'm Hannah Khan, Head of Sixth Form. I'm also Deputy Head. I did think about putting photographs on this slide, but as soon as it got to thinking about putting one of me, I decided against it. And I suspect my colleagues will be pleased that I didn't do that as well. However, I think most of you probably know who we are. So working closely with me is John Dubbridge, who is Deputy Head of Sixth Form. He's in the P department as well and also helps to manage our inclusion unit. Who works very closely with us is Lynn Price. She's sixth form secretary. Many of the students who are in the sixth form who have been through KLB for the last few years will also know her as the exam secretary. She works very hard behind the scenes with the sixth form and helps us to keep running nice and smoothly. Rob Penman is someone that the students will meet probably towards the end of Year 12. Rob, our ex-head of English, is a fantastic support with students for preparation for the next step. He is self-titled higher education consultant, works with students preparing personal statements, applications for university and apprenticeship. As I say, his work largely with sixth form is at the end of Year 12 and into Year 13. And we have a tutor team, so 6 tutor groups. So your son, daughter will be in one of these tutor groups. Ms Jones, Head of Languages, Ms Campion, who works in English. She's in charge of Key Stage 5 English and also runs the extended project qualification. Mr Thompson, that's Mr Thompson in technology, not in languages. Ms Gallivan in the English department, Mrs Reynolds, who is Head of Psychology, and then Mr Daniels' tutor group is shared with Mr War. You'll be aware, I'm sure, that Mr Daniels has not been well, and there is an operation pending. And at the moment they've been doing a handover, and as soon as he's back and up and running, he'll be taking over the tutor group again. So the presentation will be in 3 sections really. The first is just to give you the overview of where we are with the A-level courses, sort of the A-level journey ahead, in terms of what we expect from students, how we're going to support them. Particularly hard transition, I think, this one from GCSE to A-level, certainly not helped by the big gap in their time in school and their time in learning. The second section I'm going to talk about is the enrichment programme and extracurricular. Obviously some of that has had to be adapted in light of what's going on around us. And then finally, just thinking a little bit ahead to how we support our students to prepare for the next step beyond KLB. We've had a really positive start to Year 12. The students have come back very enthusiastic. To be honest, I think they're glad to get back to school. And we felt a really sort of positive buzz around the sixth form area. We had a great induction day. The students just got stuck in, worked with each other. New students were welcomed into the sixth form, and it's felt very purposeful and very positive over the last few weeks. I'm sure that what will start to set in, as I've shared with the students, is once the adrenaline wears off slightly, the fatigue sets in, and you may well find that students are coming home and needing a nap. That's very much part of what happens in this sixth form cycle, and then as we head over towards the end of this half term, their bodies adjust and their sort of brains adjust to working in this way. But it is sort of to be expected. Certainly if they were napping all year, then clearly not. But I think it's really useful actually to just reflect from the sixth form picture of what we saw last summer. So particularly thinking about where we were with grading for A-level, so for our Year 13 students who left. And there were certainly some lessons to be learned from that experience this summer. Many of you will know that initially the students were given a calculated grade that had come from, as it was known, the mutant algorithm. And then eventually the grades that were reinstated were the centre assessed grades at A-level. And certainly that meant that the absolute vast majority of our students were, when they were awarded their centre assessed grades, they were absolutely happy and felt that they had the grades they deserved and were able to go on to their next steps. And we felt very reassured because when we had submitted those centre assessed grades at A level, we were absolutely happy, convinced that we were giving the grades that those students were likely to get and that those students deserved. Obviously, there were a few students who weren't happy, very few actually, in just a few subjects. And so we had conversations with those students and parents in the couple of weeks after the results were released. And there was a really common theme, and the common theme actually helps to reinforce one of the messages that we set out at the beginning of the sixth form 2 years. And the message that I was sharing with most of those students who weren't happy was that their reasons for saying that they didn't think the grades were fair were largely based on what might have happened or what could have happened, rather than what had happened. And what I explained to them was that yes, on any one day someone might perform better. Yes, on any one day somebody might have revised really, really hard in those couple of weeks, 3 weeks before the exams. But actually what we've seen in the last however many years, 5 plus 6 years, that's led to the success that we've seen every year at A level is a consistent approach from the beginning in year 12. The hard worker, steady work that's had that consistent approach maintained rather than just pulled it out of the bag at the last minute. And we were able to show them that actually other students have been able to evidence that they would have got those grades far more than you have, and that's why they were awarded those grades. So it's very much, it's really reinforced of the ethos behind the sixth form about what determines the success at the end of the 2 years is about the approach. And every year, when students have sat the exams, I've picked to share with students about 8 individuals. I've always been able to find at least 8 individuals who have perhaps come from a shakyish start with GCSE, who have come in with grades where they've just maybe scraped into the sixth form, or they've not been the high flyers with the 9s and the 8s, and actually they might have been in sets sort of 4, perhaps lower down the school. And I share with them what they went on to get at A level. And so often we see that those students who had that wobbly start when they joined the sixth form, as they were joining the sixth form, went on to achieve the A's, the B's, the A stars. And the message behind that is that it was down to their approach. And that's been really powerful this summer in that it was absolutely illustrated by that process that we went through. So this is it's the mantra, and those of you who have had other children through the sixth form will have heard me say that. And as I often say, I'm going to say it until it's proved incorrect. But it absolutely is down to approach determining success. But what that's really good for is that says to all the students out there, you can make this what you want. There will be setbacks. It's going to be difficult. A levels are challenging. Nobody has plain sailing through the 2 years at A level. Nobody wings it at A level. This is absolutely down to what you're prepared to put in and how you're prepared to work. And I'm just going to unpick with you on the next slide what those features are of those successful learners. And as I think you'll agree, none of these features are difficult to accept or impossible for any of our students. So it's this. This is what made a difference. This is what we have noted for the last however many years with the successful students. These students who have gone on to get fantastic grades, open up the door for the next step, whatever it might be, but also left as students who have enjoyed their experience, students who are happy, who are confident, who have developed the skills that they need for the next step in life. And it really is down to these what I think are quite basic features. So excellent attendance, so difficult to miss a lesson at A level and be able to catch up with it just by copying up, missing out on sort of the discussion, the questioning, the nuances that the teacher will explain. It's hard to do just from notes. Use of free periods, I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a few moments, and I've spent a lot of time talking to the students about this. Last week we had a panel of Year 13 leavers who were certainly not primed with anything I was asking them to say, and we did a question and answer session for the Year 12. And without asking them to highlight any of these things, I think all of the things on the screen here were highlighted as absolutely critical for how to be successful in the sixth form, and certainly they talked about use of free periods and sort of not wasting those, particularly in the early weeks. Staying after school to work, we really encourage students to stay on and work. They're kind of in that mindset, and then they can go home a little bit later and then just stop for the evening before they start again the next day. At no point are we ever suggesting that students should be working late into the night. A good working practice has often been that students stay until 4 or 5 o'clock and then leave their work, down tools, and go home. And certainly don't spend the entire weekend working, but I'll map that out in a second on a couple of other slides. Revisiting notes through the year, really important that students' notes are organised and are thorough, so that when it comes to revise later on in the year, they're in a good position to do that and not sort of scurrying around looking for notes. Again, I'll talk about that when I talk about organisation. If I were to put something in bigger letters and in bold, it would be seeking help from staff. That for me is one of the most critical signs that a student is going to be successful. Students worry about it. At GCSE, they perhaps don't go and ask for help to the extent that they must do at A-level. The first response they'll get when they say to somebody, I'm struggling, or I want to drop a subject, is, have you been to get help? Staff are absolutely happy to support after school, free periods, whenever they can, but it's absolutely key for success at A-level. Organisation, we'll come back to taking on criticism. It's not hard for any of us, but really is constructive criticism, and actually we will see students hit failure. There'll be times where they're fed up, they feel they've worked hard and it's not worked, but all of those are lessons where we can learn. Revision plans a little bit later in the year. Paid employment, it's really hard. Students at this age are certainly keen to get some paid employment and earn a bit of money, and we appreciate that. But what we'll just ask is that they're mindful of how much time they're spending on paid employment. Working all weekend and several evenings a week is just going to exhaust them and also get in the way of learning. Sensible habits out of school, so not sort of partying hard into the night. Obviously that's less of a concern at the moment. And it is about working with us. I often say that I have one of the nicest jobs. I'm sure I have the nicest job in the school, because we have such a good relationship with the sixth form students. It's based on respect. You'll notice there's nothing on the slide about good behaviour. We have the Ofsted quote from them. We don't have a behaviour management system because we don't need one. We just expect that the students will raise their game, will sort of meet the expectations, and that they'll work hard with the absolute guarantee that we will do the same for them. We will work hard for them, we will support them every step of the way. So just some of the detail about the A-levels, all linear now, so there are no modules taken during the course of the 2 years as there have been previously. For some of you who have older sons, daughters, it might have been ASs, now all linear, all based on the exam. In some cases there's still a little bit of coursework, so PE, for example, history, English, but mostly it's based on examination at the end of 2 years. The model that we are following, and we have done for some time with success, is that most students will do 4 in year 12, and the majority drop to 3 at the end of year 12 after their summer exams. Some do continue with all 4 throughout the 2 years. Just to unpick a few of these, one of the reasons for why we recommend 4 is that absolutely no evidence suggests that dropping to 3 means that students perform better. We will hear the argument, as we do every year, that if I do 3, I will spend all that time released on my other 3. That just doesn't happen, or it happens very, very, very rarely. The intention's there, but in terms of practice, it doesn't. I believe that busy people tend to be successful. The students who drop from 4 to 3 often will drift into the common room in free periods and while away hours looking at phones and chatting, sort of convincing themselves that they'll do it in the next hour or the next day when they've got 2 free periods, and it's very easy for that time just to sort of whittle away. Certainly the students who are doing 4 tend to be a bit more purposeful and well organised, so absolutely no evidence really for saying that 3 suddenly releases an amount of time to do it. Some of the students will be studying subjects that they haven't met before, so psychology, film studies, economics, and so maybe these subjects aren't quite what they expected, so having the 4 does give that flexibility for dropping 1, and also subjects that they have studied previously might not turn out exactly as they had. What we said is give it a month and see how it's going. Come and talk to us if you're thinking about dropping, and each student will get individual advice. It will be personalised to their own situation. That certainly was the advice that our ex-students gave as well. So in the early days, the approach that works is based on really good organisation and effective time management. And our students who have come from full-time GCSE courses, where every hour has been timetabled for them, aren't used to managing their own time. So it's really important that we talk to them about how they can do that, and sort of teach them the skills they need to be able to do. Basic organisation is really simple. This is just making sure that they're in control. So we've talked through with them some really simple tips about having a folder in school with dividers that always comes to school, section for each teacher, a front section in that folder for any work that's due to be handed in, just so they're not sort of rifling through their bag trying to find work, just really organised, sit at the front of the folder. Really important that work's dated. They'll be handing work in, it won't come back for a week or so, possibly longer with sort of the quarantine at the moment. So it's important it goes back in the right place, so that when they revise at the end of year 12 or at the end of year 13, that they have that work all in the right order. And we have encouraged them to make sure that if they are working from a pad of paper, that just at the end of a lesson they file that work in the right place. Just some simple tips there that really do make a difference. So the students may well have said to you at home that we spent some time with them working on a tried and tested method for managing time, which we've talked through at length and modelled for them. If you see copies of this at home, a to-do list, then that would suggest that they have decided to give our method a go. It's a really simple model, so they keep a to-do list at the front of their folder. They also have several copies of their timetable, which are annotated as you'll see in the next slide. So what the student has done here is they have annotated across their timetable when they are able to work. So there are some crosses where they're not able to. So we've said, fair enough, Monday period 1, Friday period 5, where there are 2 crosses. So while they're working in those, perhaps straight after the weekend, you just want an hour to catch up with friends, or last on a Friday, don't really work. But what the little pink blobs represent are the hours where the student has worked out that they are available to work. So this student here is using the majority of his frees. So there are little blobs in all the free periods. He's decided to do some work on a Sunday and not a Saturday. Maybe Saturdays for other things, absolutely great. Definitely not working on a Friday evening. He's decided to go to maths drop-in on a Thursday every week, because that's really helpful for getting some advice from teachers, and then to do nothing after that on a Thursday, having gone to drop-in that week. Here he's decided he will do a little bit on a Thursday after the drop-in. So what the students we suggest they do is just map out when are you able to work. This is based on the model that they could stay from, say, 3 o'clock till 5 o'clock in school, and then down tools, go home, and nothing needs to happen later into the night. So the model is based on about an hour for an hour. That is often what I'm quoted as saying. It's based on looking at when it's effective to work. So free periods are really useful times to work. After school, as I say earlier, and certainly a little bit at the weekend, but definitely not all. But what students need to be looking at is whether they can find about 30 hours for their work over the course of that fortnight. And the model that is on that timetable I've just shown you, which I'll just flick back on very quickly, does have about 30 hours mapped out on it. So back to this one, this does have just over 30 hours mapped out on it, with most frees used, something at the weekend, and a couple of hours after school most days, but as you can see, not all days. So we're absolutely not suggesting that they're working all the time, but it's just that free time that's really useful. What I did point out to them was that supposing they don't use these frees here, and decide just to sit and chill in the common room, which they could do, if they do that, then those hours are going to need to come somewhere else, so they'll end up being pushed into the weekend or into later at night, which is really not good for learning. So just to mention a couple of things that are key for getting those effective routines going. It's all very well us giving them a model, but they need to try and test it. I have abandoned my phrase hit the ground running, which I have been known to say every year after Michael Gove used it. So I now am adopting start as you mean to go on. So the transition task will certainly have helped with that, and teachers are looking at those over the course of this term, and some of those will be reported on in the first report. And then we move to something called initial tasks, which we've been doing for many years. They serve a multitude of purposes. One is that it allows the students to have deadlines to meet, and also be able to look at new styles of learning that are specific to subjects. So, for example, with physics, we can give them an initial task focused on graph work. In history, they could give them an initial task focused on note-taking. So they're designed to make sure that the skills that the students need to cope with the subjects are being developed as well. And we'll be monitoring those over the course of the next half term. The initial tasks stretch through this half term up until the end of October. I mentioned about reports, just to let you know a little bit about what we're doing behind the scenes with monitoring. We monitor attendance, punctuality, and if there are concerns, obviously we'll talk to students, talk to you about those. Teachers do folder checks from time to time. Hopefully they'll still be able to do those. They might be quarantined before and after looking at them, but they are quite an important part of making sure things are staying well organised. Students will get targets, A-level targets, just as they would have done with GCSE. I'll write to you about that in a few months, or a few weeks actually. And then reports, which I'll highlight on the key dates slide, which is coming up. We have ongoing assessments. It isn't test at all, but every piece of work that a student does, whether it's in class or whether it's homework or whether it is a formal assessment, will go to inform how well they're doing, and particularly what they need to do to improve or for the next steps. And we monitor what's logged. You'll be able to see through Parent Portal if there are concerns, and also when things are going well. I'm absolutely a firm believer that when our students are working this hard, they need to know that teachers are recognising that and that they're praised for it. We all like to know that things are going well and that people recognise that. So we will be in touch with you when we're really pleased with things, but also we'll be in touch with you if there are concerns. Those concerns are largely just about students struggling with deadlines or work, and what we'll do when we talk about those is what we suggest we can do to help, and put some things in place. So hopefully all of that is constructive. So here are key dates for the year for year 12. The initial tasks over the course of the next 2 months. The first report is issued at beginning of December. Please don't think that means you won't have heard if there are any concerns, or you won't have heard if it's all going well. As I said in the previous slide, we will make sure that you know. But the first report is December. In the sixth form, we have 2 parents' evenings. So the report is followed the next week by Parents' Evening 1. We really encourage students to come along to that too. The second one report is March, 10th of March, and then we have the Parents' Evening following that. We have a formal exam week on the 17th of May, which is the penultimate week of Term 5, followed by a fun activities week, which I'll talk about briefly in that last week of Term 5. Obviously, all of these dates could be subject to change if other circumstances force that. If, for example, we have some sort of lockdown with the year group. So we will revise that. I'm giving you Plan A. There are several other plans sitting at the back should they be needed. We report third time after the summer exams, that's in June, and that's the point at which most students make their decisions about dropping from 4 to 3 and what they're going to drop. And then another evening, if we're able to have those evenings in school, it's a higher education evening. If not, then that will be delivered in a presentation style as well. And parents' evenings might be online. It depends what the situation is by December. So it is really important that students get the balance. We talk about the need to work hard, but we also talk about the need to not burn out. That's not in anybody's interest, and also nobody's going to enjoy their time in the sixth form if they are exhausted and burnt out and feel that they're working all the time. At the end of the question and answer session last week, I asked the students had they enjoyed their time at sixth form, and there was a resounding yes that they had. And I think that it is really important that we monitor how students are coping. It's going to be difficult, and and as I said there, it's, they're going to be challenged more than before, but that's to be expected. A levels are going to be challenging. The important thing is that they just don't struggle on their own. If you notice at home that your students are struggling, please let us know. That's what we want to do. We want to support them to try and make things better. They can work with friends, they can talk to teachers, they can talk to tutors, they could have a subject mentor. We've recommended to them that they talk to you. And we have other things that sort of sit alongside the learning programme. We have how to cope with stress, we have counsellors should that be needed. But actually most of the students will just come and have a chat with me or Mr Dubbridge, and we'll work with them as to how to get them best on track, and that's what we spend a lot of our time doing, and that's what we want to do. So beyond the classroom, our young people are busy. There are plenty of opportunities to get involved, and I think it's really important that they embrace the whole school experience with the sixth form rather than just spend all their time working. So I'm just going to outline a little bit of what is on offer beyond the classroom. So the enrichment programme, which runs every Wednesday afternoon, a variety of opportunities for students here. We have a sixth form newsletter team, brilliant for anyone who's thinking about journalism or photography perhaps, or who just wants to be involved in reporting on what's going on in the school. Quite an exciting time, an interesting time in the school at the moment. So we're looking forward to the newsletter team producing their first edition. We'll have a group who organise charity events across the school. We're looking at a Young Minds event in October, and other events throughout the year. This year, for the first time after years of request, we are running a survival cooking course. So some of the students are starting that this week. Book group and film club this week. Film club starts. That's being run by one of our ex-students. Book club has run as well. Nice chance for them to sit around, read books and chat about them. Who could ask for more? We have some external providers who deliver a couple of courses. In the photograph you'll see a chap who's delivering the first aid course. This was from last year. At the moment we're just waiting to work out through our risk assessment on all the visitors who would be coming in to deliver things like this. But we're hopeful that the first aid course will be able to run. It's a course of 3 weeks where students get basic skills and a certificate at the end of it. Skipping down 2 on the bullet point, sign language. An 8-week course, such a really useful and quite unique skill for the students who found that really challenging but very rewarding. So we're hoping to be able to do that as well, sort of socially distanced, obviously. Games, so the students will just switch off and use the time to do some sport, whether it's hockey or football at the moment. I think those are the 2 running, but others will be able to do other sports as the year goes on. I've always said they're welcome to take the dog out. It's not the best exercise because he's a bit lazy, but they're welcome to. And we've also done, I've done a presentation for the students for a scheme that Bristol University run called Access to Bristol, that they have been able to apply for, an 8-week scheme with the university that require them to submit an application form. And coming soon is EPQ, which is the Extended Project Qualification, a unique project where students are awarded the equivalent of an AS, so half an A level, but it's a very good chance for them to do sort of a project work based on the skills that are critical for university, or which really stands them in good stead for competitive courses at competitive universities or competitive apprenticeships. This is the area that's on pause at the moment. We do every year have students who head out to primary schools, to nurseries, to preschools, to care homes, charity shops, and go into the community work experience. This at the moment is just on pause while we work out what's doable. Obviously that depends on the institutions and what they've got in place, and whether that works for them, and also whether it works for us in terms of our students' safety. And beyond the classroom, other things for them to get involved in. Sixth form committee meet once a week, talk about sixth form events. They decide on what sort of events we might have. They raise issues that have come from their tutor groups, things that students aren't happy with, suggestions that students might have. The charities and fundraising activities the sixth form throw themselves into. Last year we did a calendar. Each tutor group did a month. It was lovely, and we sold those for charity. We have had pizza and quiz evenings, curry and quiz. They have turned the Drumhorn into a cinema for the evening, and watched a film. It's a really lovely environment, a lovely atmosphere. Some of those are slightly compromised at the moment, particularly the mixing of the 2-year groups, because they are in bubbles, but we're hopeful that as time goes on, we'll be able to do some social events for Year 12, and then hopefully there'll be able to be some mixing a little bit later. The sixth form chair school council, so I'm hoping that Year 12 will get involved in those. And also they have always supported the lower school students, but because of the mixing of bubbles, that again is on pause at the moment. So planning for the future, I did say to the students that it probably feels very odd that in the first couple of weeks I've already started talking about some opportunities that will be useful for them for when they go on to apply for whatever the next step might be, Access to Bristol, for example. However, it's just worth pointing out that over the course of the 2 years, there will be a range of opportunities that will really help the students to strengthen an application, whatever it's for, whether it's for employment, university, or apprenticeships, or a gap year, our foundation, whatever the next step might be. And when they come to write the application, which is mainly done at the beginning of Year 13, they'll need to reflect back on what they have done during Year 12. So they do need to think about getting involved in some of these activities sooner rather than later. It's a balance, but I will make sure that they know what opportunities can come in their way. For example, Access to Bristol, online learning courses, opportunities for, say, university residential weekends. Some of those might be virtual to start with, subject master classes. There are some really, really valuable opportunities, but they are advertised and promoted early in Year 12. The thing that students have to do is just check their email, because I will put it in weekly bulletins to them, but I will send out emails to them. I will be filling their inboxes with emails with opportunities and other information. So I've suggested that they pop that on their phone so that they don't miss them. At any point, if the students want any advice about next steps, they're welcome to talk to any of the sixth form team. And also we have an independent careers advisor who comes in once a week just to meet with sixth form students. So help is on hand, but just wanted to flag up that thinking about it now is actually a good thing to do. So finally, help from parents. Finally, you'll probably be pleased to hear we're on the penultimate slide. So help from parents, it's working together. I've already, I hope, reinforced how important a good working relationship is between us and the students. It's absolutely key to making this work. And the same with working with parents. We're really keen to work with you. The things that are so helpful is if you could just make sure that you let us know about absence, try and keep holidays, try and keep appointments out of term time, and obviously not taking term time holidays, although it's a silly thing to say at the moment. Monitoring paid employment, just keep an eye on that. Sometimes it's really hard for students. They get pressured by employers because obviously they're quite cheap in terms of what they're being paid. So employers tend to try and get quite a few hours out of them, particularly as they run up to Christmas. So they sometimes need the parent to step in and say, actually, this is not fair. So just keep an eye on that. Your support with dress code, please. We do have a dress code, and it's nice to avoid any confrontations about that. So we do from time to time speak to students about that. We will let you know if there are concerns. Out of school activities, again, less of a concern at the moment, but this sort of refers really to the social scene that the students might try and pop in during the week. Just keeping an eye on that, but there will be fewer opportunities now. Just making sure that you do think they are doing what I've suggested with the time each evening if they're coming home. So if they're working in school, then we can see that. But if you think that your son or daughter is coming home at 3 o'clock every day and you don't see any signs of work after that ever, then get in touch, because something's not right there. Just a word of caution about private tutors. I know that when students start to encounter difficulties, they quite often will say, will I be able to get a tutor, and ask parents, and we quite often have parents asking us, do we know tutors that we can recommend? I would just pause perhaps before that. I think that actually a lot of the success at A-level is for the students to maybe not have it that easy, where somebody goes through it with them again or teaches them again. What they need to do is unpick it themselves, and they've got to work out where they're stuck. So just a word of caution, really. I speak from experience as someone who remembers her further maths tutor just helping me, basically helping my homework, doing my homework, and there were times where that was happening rather than me learning it. Apologies if you just picked up the background noise there. That was a golden retriever having a very long drink. So hopefully you heard what I said about the private tutors. Just be aware, obviously, of the parents' evenings and report dates. To be aware of the bursary, that the information about that was enclosed in the sixth form sixth form acceptance envelopes, and we have emailed students about that. The post-16 bursary is to give students the opportunity for a level playing field for access to anything they need on courses, whether it's trips, whether it's resources, or whether it can go towards transport. Really important that students, if they're entitled to that they claim that. Let us know if you have concerns. That dialogue between homeschool is really critical. You might see things on Parent Portal. If you've got any concerns, then please get in touch. The easiest way always is my email, but not replying to the one that says Catherine Lady Barclay School. So that seems to just disappear. So emailing me at hcarn@KLB School is always the best way of getting hold of me. There's often a delay if you use the other one because I haven't seen it. Okay, so hopefully that's given you an overview and saved you a trip into school. So hopefully I've just given you a sort of the overview of what the sixth form year looks like, the expectations, priorities, how we're supporting opportunities, and what's going on behind the scenes. If you do have any questions, then we have an opportunity for you to ask those, or several actually. One is that there'll be a Zoom on Tuesday next week between 5 and 6. I'll send you the link for that Zoom in the morning. You're welcome to join it for the whole hour. You're welcome to come along halfway through. You're welcome to email me questions in advance, but you don't have to. Or if everything has been answered, then no need to attend at all. If you aren't able to attend the Zoom but you have any questions, then just at any point, please feel free to get in touch. I look forward to working with you over the next 2 years. As I say, we've had a really positive start, and I'm really hopeful that that will continue. Thank you very much for listening, and I do hope that at some point I get to see you all soon. Thank you. Bye.